Hello, everyone. This is Mark Anthony with AI Edge Promotions and Podcast. I hope everyone out there in internet land is doing fantastic. Today, I have a special guest. His name is Dr. Scott Little. You can go to drscottlittle.com, then scottlittle.com. Today, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about the interface of chiropractic analysis and the legacy of I am toughness. Today, Dr. Little is the developer of light force adjusting methods for humans and animals. His techniques and methods are extremely gentle and specific, with minimal or no twisting or cracking and popping. He is also recognizes that chiropractic is part of the proactive wellness oriented lifestyle. While most clients come in with initial complaint that will typically improve within a handful of sessions, the true value of chiropractic is being checked and adjusted as needed 1 to 4 times per month. Chiropractic may be excellent at helping one to get out of immediate pain, but the true benefits come from with long-term periodic care. The founder of the chiropractic profession stated that chiropractic was founded on tone. He said life is the expression of tone. In that sentence is the basic principle of chiropractic. And today I have with us Dr. Scott Little. Thank you so much, Doctor, for being here and help us with that title. I probably pronounced it a little wrong. It's not like you say that
Just
every
fine.
day.
You did just fine. It is the interface chiropractic analysis and the legacy of Dr. Ian Toffness. The term interface, generically speaking, an interface is the point at which multiple people, systems, organizations come together to collaborate to solve a problem. And in this case, the interface, which is a device of my own creation based on loosely on the work of Dr. Ian Toffness, this interface is the point at which our educated intelligence comes together, all of our chiropractic education, all of our chiropractic experience, along with our intuition, our cognitive ability, our autonomic nervous system all collaborate to help the chiropractor to determine what he or she might do. Dr. Ian Toffness was a relatively famous chiropractor in the world of pioneers like J. Clay Thompson or B.J. Palmer or Clarence Gonstead, in that these are gentlemen who developed technique and changed the profession with their technique teaching. And Dr. Ian Toffness developed technology. I tried to show a picture of it, but it was technology that was pretty elaborate. It had a handle and a rubbing plate and then a long cone, and then contained in that cone were lenses and cones, amplifiers, apertures, and so forth. And the theory of Dr. Toffness, if we were to sit down and read his patent on that device, his theory was in the presence of a vertebral subluxation, there was an interference, a microwave radiation coming off of the nervous system of the patient that we with our hand could not pick up. So, in theory, his device amplified that and changed the rubbing texture of the plate such that the chiropractor could use that information to determine where he or she might apply a contact or a
Hmm.
force. He was a student of H.B. Logan as well as B.J. Palmer, and was really, really gravitated towards the light sustained contact in a Logan basic contact. And he taught his technique for about 50 years, and he taught chiropractors to use his equipment and so forth. And quite frankly, Mark, if you and I were to sit in the coffee shop behind my office with a latte, or I just have a plain coffee, and read his patent together, we'd say, wow, this is really cool, but I don't think that it worked the way he did. And indeed, in 1985 or so, the FDA came down with a permanent ban on he and his equipment, and the profession has been kept from this technology for about 40 years. However, I went to a chiropractic college. Logan College of Chiropractic is what it was called at the time, and he was very influential in that school. And our president at the time and our vice president at the time were practitioners or students of his. Most of the faculty was, especially the older people. And they were even conducting research on his technique. And the thing about it that attracted me was the confidence, competence, and certainty that these practitioners got by using this device. And the focus was always on the device. And that's the unfortunate conflict here. His device probably did not work at all the way he explained it, and really, if we take the focus off of the device and what it did, and just recognize that all of us came factory preloaded with an autonomic nervous system. This app that was hidden in the operating system that no chiropractor knows that they have, but Dr. Toffness tapped into it, and while his explanation and his instrument was very elaborate, we recognize that we have an autonomic nervous system that has a sympathetic branch and a parasympathetic branch, stress, relaxation. And when we are under stress, facing negativity, finding a subluxation in our patient, then perhaps our heart rate might go up and our muscles might tense up and our brain waves might change and our skin temperature might get cold. And this is the key, and we would get an increased sweat gland activity in our fingertips, like a lie detector test. Hook this up. I say, my name is Mark. No, my subconscious says, no, that's not true. My name is Scott, and there's an increase and a decrease in our sweat gland activity. Well, we learned that ancient Asian healers have been studying this or using this technology, which is this built in app, if you will, for thousands of years. They just rub their thumb and index finger together. And when there's a stickiness, that's caused by increased sweat gland activity, sympathetic response. When there's a smoothness, then that is because there's a truth, a serenity, if you will. Well, Dr. Toffness developed this instrument, and I think you and I might watch him do what he did and say, I think the explanation for what is going on there is what you said, Scott. You know, the practitioner finds a positive chiropractic finding, a subluxation, and gets a an autonomic response, and that's why there's a stickiness on his rubbing plate. And so we created a device that we call the interface, and again, the interface is that point in which all of these systems come together. In our case, our chiropractic understanding, our education, our experience, along with our sensory and perceptive capabilities, our central nervous system processing all of this information. And the output is our autonomic nervous system, the sweat response. And we created a device and we call it the interface. And we put a dot after the I in the end to pay tribute to I.N. Toffness. And we respect this gentleman and consider him our hero in spite of the fact that there was a certain element in the profession who'd heard of his work and said, "He's a quack." You know, this instrument he created is quackery and he's a nutcase, and the FDA came down on him. Well, today we just recognize that again, 100% of the 8.2 billion people on this planet have an autonomic nervous system. And when they encounter stress or negativity, there's a subtle increase in sweat gland activity, and when there's not, there's not. We train doctors how to monitor that because the confidence, competence, and certainty that it allows us to bring to the table to analyze our patient for subluxation and know exactly where to apply a force, regardless of whether that's with a drop or our hands or an instrument or a light sustained contact or anything that we might do. We are tapping into that God given factory preloaded app called the sympathetic nervous system to give us confidence in what we are finding and what we are going to do. And so Dr. Toffness was a major influencer in the chiropractic profession. From the time he started teaching students in 1936 until the FDA came down on him in the mid 80s, and then he passed away in uh, 1989 or so. 1990, 1990, 1909 to 1990. He passed away about 15 months before I started Logan College, but there was evidence of his technology and his legacy all around the Logan campus, and I was fascinated by it. I was able to learn it 31 years ago and have been using it ever since. And I just feel like it is my mission in the next 31 years of my practice to teach as many chiropractors as I can, ones that this technology really lends itself to a pediatric practice or a animal practice. Some, practices where other technologies like muscle testing or leg length analysis or things of that nature don't work. This works for everybody, but it really shines in the area of pediatrics and animal chiropractic, things where other forms might not work as well. So that's what I do. That's what I have done for 31 years. Dr. Toffness was my chiropractic hero and intended to come up with a different story. The story was ultimately what the FDA got him on, was the principle that he believed, and I'm not saying he was wrong, I'm just saying that a logical, rational person might suggest that there's another thing going on here. We came up with a story that makes the focus on us. We are the instrument. We have the autonomic nervous system. We have the
100%.
central nervous system. We have the chiropractic education. We are using this technology to monitor subtle physiologic changes in us while we are performing our chiropractic evaluation. And I would boldly state that there is no human being on planet Earth, there is no government agency, there is no chiropractic board who can challenge me and say, we forbid you to monitor your physiology while you are performing your chiropractic evaluation. Doing so would require them to go to every veterinarian and every medical doctor and forbid them to use their stethoscope because it functions on the same principle as a stethoscope. Or you would be forbidden to use a heart rate monitor while you're exercising, monitoring your own physiology. We make no claims that our instrument is diagnostic or therapeutic. It is purely a tool that allows us to conveniently monitor our own physiology and use that information just like a muscle tester asks yes no questions, or a leg length analyzer gets information through that interface. Those are interfaces as well. We use this and it gives us tremendous confidence. And the patients oftentimes will say, how did you know? I didn't tell you, but that's where my pain is. Now, as a chiropractor, it is not my job to treat pain. It is my job to find areas of incoherence and dysfunction called subluxation and facilitate the correction thereof. But the reality is that oftentimes is related to a patient's chief complaint, even though I don't necessarily ask about their chief complaint, even though I don't have an objective of treating their chief complaint. I find where the problem is, and I'm able to quantify which area of the spine to address first and maybe second, and so on and so forth. But my
Let's talk more about I wanna talk more about your machine.
okay, okay.
So, that machine, how long ago did you get that created?
Well, I've had various versions for 31 years. I created my version of it a couple of years ago. And one of the things that makes it distinct from Dr. Toffness's device, not
Mhm.
only in the explanation for how it worked, but we simplified it dramatically. I was hoping to be able to show a couple of pictures of his device along with the internal mechanisms, but I can describe it. You would have seen an instrument with a handle, but a long cone. And contained in that cone were these cones and amplifying lenses and things that his belief was would amplify the signal coming off of the patient and change the rubbing plate. That is where I respectfully push that explanation aside and offer our explanation that we just
Simplified it.
communicated. Yes, ours is a simple rubbing plate on a base with a handle with a little storage area for talc. That's how we use it. We take pure talc and put it on our fingers to dry, much like if you were playing pool or bowling and you get it dry. And then we learn to rub the plate. And the way we teach doctors is initially that you're in control. You get a yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, a squeaky smooth, squeaky smooth. I say, my name is Mark, and I get a squeak. Now, I make it do that. I train myself and sort of season the device to where I'm going to get an increased sweat gland activity in the presence of negativity or untruth, and it's going to be smooth. There's this constant flux in your autonomic nervous system, just like there is when you talk about polyvagal theory, and we're constantly going up and down this ladder of sympathetic and parasympathetic, et
Hmm.
cetera. We simplified his device. We said there was no value in the cones. There was no value in the amplifying lenses. There was no value in any of those things. We teach people initially to get this physiologic change with their thumb and index finger to train them that this is monitoring your physiology. It's not the device. Then we just present the device as a convenient tool with a to have a lens and have a handle and so forth. But we teach, and our focus is on you, Mark, are the device. This is your autonomic nervous
So do
system.
I put my finger on it, or how does it do it? Do you
Yeah,
put it over me, or do I put my hand on it? You ask a question? How does
well,
that work?
I could run a scan. I could just put it in my pocket and palpate with one hand. You're basically just like in muscle testing works on a yes/no principle, and
Mhm.
we assign no or negativity to a weak muscle, and we assign a strong muscle to yes. Oftentimes questions are asked, is muscle testing objective or not? Well, it's only as objective as the practitioner's ability to take their own preconceived notions out of the equation. It's frustrating to go to chiropractic seminars and there's a nutrition person there and here, hold my supplements, see how you go strong. Now hold your supplements, see how you go weak. Clearly your body wants my, and that is only objective if the practitioner's willing to say, okay, I'm going to blindfold myself. You hold whichever you hold a random supplement, and we'll see how your body likes that. So we teach practitioners to use it as a scanning device, a quantifying device, but it's basically the chiropractor going through her recipe, if you will, and okay, is it sacrum? Is it L5? Is it C1? And all the while training to monitor. The same thing could be done again in a muscle testing scenario or leg length analysis. What we teach practitioners is you are the computer, you're the operating system. You get to write your own software, which is basically in a binary world, ones and zeros, yes and no's. That's where I say you're saying, is it sacrum? Is it right? Is it left? Is it this? Is it this direction? Is it this direction? I mean, that's all part of the skill set of using it. But to answer your question, how do you actually use it? There's
Yeah.
a specific motion, and one has to learn to get the right. It's like driving a stick shift car. If anybody remembers that, a friction point, you get it to there, and then
You
that's
gotta
when
move it.
the gear's going to shift. So we teach people to get to that friction point, and then it's either going to go one way or the other. It's either going to go. There's either going to be a squeak that is caused by increased moisture in your fingertips on the rubbing plate. Most common questions I get are, what is that? How does that work? What does that do? How does that find? And the answer in all of those is always, it does nothing. It doesn't find anything. It doesn't measure anything. It is my simple skin conductance monitor that I use during my chiropractic analysis to bring me confirmation that what I think needs to take place. That's that's my chiropractic experience. That's not some sort of mystical information that I'm getting. I do think that there is a conversation to be had about information that we can get from the energy field and the matter of the body and so forth, but I don't want it to be that the chiropractor is getting some mystical information that she wouldn't be getting otherwise. It is simply a confirmation tool, if you will, but it's something that I saw these practitioners at Logan College using, and I loved how they knew that they knew that they knew, and I was like, "Why can't I learn that?" And the answer was because the FDA put a permanent ban on what was called the toughness radiation detector, and I hope I've communicated that we're not
Mhm.
detecting radiation. Their exact verbiage was the toughness radiation detector, the toughness instrument, the toughness sensometer, or any device that works on the same or a similar principle. Now let's analyze that phrase, or any device that works on a similar principle. Mark, if you were in a room and you were watching Dr. Toffness use his device on a patient, and you saw me using my device on a patient, you would rightly say, you two are doing the exact same thing. You'd say, his device looks a little bit more elaborate than yours, but you're doing the exact same thing. And it's that last phrase, the principle involved. Now, if the principle is using a rubbing instrument, well, you got me. We're doing the same thing. But if the principle is the explanation for how the situation works, then that's where we're dramatically different. Dr. Toffness would say, there's a radiation, it goes through these cones and lenses, changes the rubbing texture. I just rub it and I find where I'm going to adjust. I'm going to say respectfully, no, I am the instrument. God gave me the central nervous system and the autonomic nervous system and the
And it's gonna come out of you.
and now 31 years of chiropractic experience, and I am simply monitoring subtle energetic changes that occur in my finger pads, and that's where it is. I mean, our finger pads have about 300 sweat glands for each one, and those are all hooked up to the sympathetic nervous system. You know, probably the very first podcast you ever initiated, your hands were probably a little bit sweaty. You know, if you're standing up in front of church, gonna lead prayer or something, your hands are a little bit sweaty.
The body changes.
It's just built
So,
into
basically, you're
physiology.
the diameter. It's in you, but here what I'm ask my question to you is, let's say I go right into your office, and I'm just gonna play it by ear, just kinda go with the flow. Probably has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I think it does. I go there and I'm like, "You know what? I need a checkup, with my body." How would that go? Do I put my hand on that, or do you just
Well,
ask me
you don't
questions, or how does this work?
no, 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 no. This is me. This is the extension of my it's me. I have it. You don't have it at all. You just lay on my table and I scan you and then I palpate and I'm all the while asking yes no
Questions.
questions and not to you, but to the field, to my intuition, to this combination of my educated and my innate intelligence and my
Mhm.
intuition and my brain. It's just like how does an activator practitioner function with the patient prone and they are doing leg checks and there's a specific test for each vertebral segment or if a person is doing muscle testing then that practitioner's going through a mental checklist. Is it atlas, is it
Correct.
I don't do a case or a technique like that, but any chiropractor's analysis is just the asking of yes, no questions and going through a
Correct.
checklist in their own mind of what needs to take place. So, you come in and we do our consultation and I explain a little bit about how I'm going to use the device, but we start with a muscle strength test that gives us information about the upper
Mhm.
cervical spine. And then I lay the patient down and they're really not privy to the idea of what I'm doing. They'll ask, "But what was that squeak that I heard? And why was that squeak where the pain was, and I didn't even know that there." Well, we'll address that and
Wow.
address what was that you were doing, and how does that thing work, and so forth. And we go through the explanation that we've just been going over the last 20 minutes. It's the instrument doesn't do anything. This is something that allows me to monitor subtle energetic changes in my sympathetic nervous system. It's my interface with what's going on in your body. And I know, I mean, as a chiropractor, I know that 90% of everything is in the upper cervical spine and a little bit is in the sacrum and pelvis. Those are the 2
Mhm.
most important areas, and if you're really good there, then the majority of everything in the middle goes away, but that's where an untrained person wouldn't get the same information. They wouldn't be asking the same questions. They wouldn't be asking, is it atlas, axis, or occiput? Is it right, left? Is it forward? Is it backwards? Is it, anterior, posterior, inferior, superior, etc.? That's where we rely on our chiropractic education. And the other thing that Dr. Toffness got in trouble with the FDA and certain boards was the use of the term diagnosis. Now, at that time, there was no insurance in chiropractic. That a chiropractor's diagnosis was right atlas or left sacrum. It was his findings. It was her findings. It wasn't what we think of the term diagnosis today. But there were practitioners, and in my practice, I'm very clear that my professional objective is to locate, analyze, and facilitate the correction of vertebral subluxation to allow innate intelligence to express life, health, and vitality at a greater level, simply based on the idea that if you have a subluxation, that's bad. If we correct your subluxation, that's good. You'll function and be more coherent. But, there are chiropractors that venture off into treating disease, and maybe a chiropractor gets a reading over the liver and makes a diagnosis and a claim that the person has liver cancer. Well, that's stupid. That's inappropriate, and that practitioner probably deserves to have their license pulled. But unfortunately, Dr. Toffness's work got affected by some practitioners that use the technology, or at least, let me give the practitioners the benefit of the doubt, at least accused of using the technology inappropriately, using it to diagnose and treat a medical condition or make a medical claim. In my opinion, whether one is monitoring subtle energetic changes in their finger pads in their autonomic nervous system, or doing leg length analysis or muscle testing or anything like that, I believe that it is inappropriate for a chiropractor ever to make a medical diagnosis such as you have liver cancer. And I know so because I muscle tested it, or something. I think that's an inappropriate use of chiropractic, and it certainly would be an inappropriate use of our technology. In fact,
Let's talk more about your technology. Let's say I come into your office and how would that work? What type of people come into your office? And, for number one, you have people say, I have back pain. Do you utilize that at whatsoever? Do you go through a
yeah, so I proudly say that I care for people of all ages and animals of a variety of size
that's
and
awesome.
species. And I use this technology in addition to a patient history and a consultation and a clear communication of my professional objective, which is always and exclusively to locate, analyze, and facilitate the correction of vertebral subluxation. So regardless of whether the I've got a newborn infant or a chihuahua or anything in between, I'm going to state that that is what I do. That's what makes me different than any other person within healthcare, or that is my unique professional objective. And arguably, it goes beyond healthcare
Mhm.
into just ideal expression of life, health, and vitality. So a person comes in, brings their child, brings their dog. I go out to see a horse. And a big part of my evaluation is not only going to be palpation of the matter with my fingers, as would any other chiropractor, but a palpation of the energy field, if you will, with my interface. I consider this and scanning my palpatory findings with this to be equal to my palpatory findings with the physical matter. We're dealing with not only the physical matter which makes up the patient, but the energetic expression that makes up the patient. And those things together are just in being input into my central nervous system, processed by my brain, giving me an output in my autonomic nervous system. And then that will help me to determine whether I might use a drop or an adjusting instrument or a light sustained contact or whatever. And then I will perform a scan at the end to make sure that all of my chiropractic indicators are clear. In chiropractic, is essential to have a pre-check and a post check. In my human practice, when they are old enough, I will do a muscle strength test to determine what's going
Mhm.
on in the upper cervical spine. And then the majority of what I do is going to be with the interface. Then at the end, the post check is they have a strong muscle and I get zero readings with my device. When I say readings, that can be misinterpreted. I no longer find an autonomic response taking place in me. I am confident that the patient is clear and that I have done what I needed to do. Again, the instrument doesn't find anything. The instrument does not diagnose nor treat. So that's what would happen regardless of species or age.
That's awesome. Do you have any, like, live videos of you actually working
I
on
do.
somebody live that we can
I do, and
I
have
can
a
add that to this too,
okay,
by the way.
okay. And, the most common question is, "What is that you're doing?" If they've ever heard of the work of Dr. Toffness, they'll say, "Isn't that Toffness? Didn't the FDA ban what he did?" And the answer would be yes. And then that's where we have to have this conversation that I hope you understand that this is someone whose work I have tremendous respect for, but he said this and we say this, and we believe that our explanation is completely bulletproof. And so it's interesting to post videos on Facebook and so forth and get challenged. Hey, you're doing something illegal. You're doing something. No, it's not illegal for me to monitor my own physiology and I defy you to find a human being that could challenge me on that. It would be illegal for me to say that I was using the tool and it diagnoses and it treats and it does these things. But so yeah, I have a website and we can put a link to it. It's Light Force Methods. I like to I want to I make money selling these, but I want to teach it for free. So I'm working on a course for Sherman College of Chiropractic whereby a person might learn how to do it and get continuing education. But aside from that, then I create videos and workshops that to teach people how to monitor these subtle energetic changes and
Mhm.
apply that to their chiropractic evaluation. I don't charge for that. I'll teach it for free because in order for you to do it, then, you have my instrument, and I'm really the
Is
only
that lifeforcewellness.com you said?
Light, Light,
Light. Okay.
Light Force
Light Force
Methods,
methods. Okay.
lightforcemethods.com. And there's videos in there. I teach people how to use it. The reality is that the reason I got to teach or I got to learn this was I was a senior at Logan College in, I guess, 1994. I was fascinated by the work. I was told that I couldn't learn it, but I was friends with the two doctors that ran the research department, the Toffness Research Department. They were still able to conduct research. It was ongoing, even though there was an FDA ban on teaching the technique. And Dr. David Toffness, the nephew of Dr. Ian Toffness, upon Dr. Ian's death, Dr. David was given the rights to do whatever he could in the presence of this FDA ban. And basically what happened was he went to the FDA's attorney, the guy who had been their enemy, and said, "What could we have done differently?" And he said, "You called it a radiation detector. You couldn't identify the radiation you were detecting. We got you on mislabeling. It was your explanation, if you will. It was the principle upon which you said that it worked. We didn't like it, and we thought it was quackery, and we shut you down." He said off the record, because he was retired, he said, "Redesign the instrument. Don't call it a radiation detector and they'll probably leave you alone." And he taught. I was his first student in 9
Wow.
years, and he taught for a few years, and then some Elliot Ness type at the FDA came and said, "Wait, we put a permanent ban on you. Permanent means forever." And it was all based on this misunderstanding of how it worked and how it diagnosed and all this BS that we have successfully, in my opinion. I believe the explanation that I just gave is such that right, no logical and rational human being would ever challenge me. And we also formed a private membership association that protects our rights to engage in this work, to say what we say and to do what we do. And so I believe us to be ironclad, and I intend to spend the next 31 years of my life teaching as many chiropractors as I can, again, about this hidden app that you came factory preloaded with that you've never applied to your chiropractic evaluation. And if you did, you'd absolutely love it.
Wow, is there anything out there that you see that's maybe close to what you're doing?
Well, any chiropractor's evaluation is that same interface, if you will, between their educated and their
Right,
sensory and their system and their brain.
right.
They would always look at it that way. Sometimes we'll explain leg lengths as a reflex or something, but it's really the same thing.
Mhm.
And there may be other people that are making similar devices. That has been part of the toughness history for a long time. There's not a lot of information out there about Dr. Ian Toffness, and that which is out there is bad. This guy, Stephen Barrett, the MD who called himself the Quack Watch guy, who hated every single aspect of anything that wasn't mainstream medicine, and that included every chiropractic technique. It includes Robert F. Kennedy Jr., it
Right.
includes vitamin C, it includes everything. And he has an article in which he outlined the what he considered the quackery of Dr. Ian Toffness and different board rulings that chiropractors got ruled against. And sometimes it was things like this. It was like, "Mark, I can cure your cancer in 6 months." And the chiropractor owned a Toffness instrument, uh,
Okay.
did AK, did pendulum, did all these things. I mean, and they just listed the Toffness instrument as something that, the guy also owned a cat. That doesn't mean that there was any more of a relationship between, the guy shouldn't have told a cancer patient, "I'll have you cured in." That's bad language. But then
Yeah,
Dr. Toffness gets the black ball, a black mark against.
because of his name and what he
Right,
did.
and because the guy owned his technology. Now, again, there was a time and a place in which the term diagnosis was used differently by chiropractors. They were trying to be like doctors, and, that's a topic for another day, but the absolute best chiropractors we've ever put out went to school for 18 months after high school, military, or prison and came out and changed the world, and now we have to go to 4 years of undergrad before we go 4 years at a chiropractic college, get ourselves $400,000 in debt, but, because we try to be medical doctors, and really, the best time to be a chiropractor was in those days with Dr. Toffness and Dr. Gonstead and Dr. J.
Yeah,
Clay Thompson. These guys, and there were females
amazing.
too. I don't mean to be sexist, but they changed the world and they thought differently. And our education and our $400,000 a student debt doesn't make us better practitioners than the old timers. So no, I don't really think that there's really anything else out there. As again, you could get the same information just by learning to rub your thumb against your index finger. That's what Chinese or Asian healers have done for thousands of years. So says Dr. Bradley Nelson, the author of the emotion code. He has a chapter and he talks about different forms of kinesiology, the standard
Mhm.
kinesiology using our different forms of kinesiology. And he talks about how the ancient Chinese healers would rub their thumb against their index finger, leveraging the sympathetic response when they find positive or negative information. So that's what we're leveraging. We just created a device that was convenient to monitor that in
I
our
love it. If you could
whatever your interface is. I hope it brings you confidence, competence, and certainty. I love this. I want to make this available to as many people as possible. I want to expose you to it for free. Just go to the website and check it out. If you consider it quackery, I hope that in listening to this, it's a bulletproof explanation. But if you can see how, especially certain patients, like a newborn pediatric case or something like that, it would bring something of value to to the table. I just don't want this to just look like some sort of voodoo Ouija board quackery, and I hope that we have built a bulletproof explanation for the principle that we understand how it works versus perhaps why certain government agencies and people didn't agree with his explanation. And therefore, instead of just saying, hey, go change your explanation, let's explore what's really going on. Let's just throw the baby out with the bathwater and make you vilified and make you a quack. And so I would just encourage people that if you have any interest in exploring it, watch some of the videos that I've got on that website and reach out to me. I have a cell phone. The cell phone number is readily available and I answer it. I don't hide behind a staff or anything. If you were interested in getting the technology, then I'm interested in getting it into your hands and coaching you through the process of making sure that you can use it effectively. It is the most important thing that I have ever experienced chiropractically. I've used it on every patient, every species, every age for 31 years. And is it a crutch? There's a chiropractor who used to do it and went to a palm reader at the fair and got his palm read. And as he's leaving, she says, hey, wait, you're some sort of healer. Yeah, I'm a chiropractor. She goes, I have this vision. You rub something. Yeah. He says, you don't need that anymore. And he never did it anymore. Well, it really is just an amplification or a confirmation of intuitive process and so forth. And, he did muscle testing and he did things. People will tell me, hey, that you just use that as a crutch. And I say, yeah, but you know what? If I was an amputee and I really liked the way I could get around with my crutches versus hopping around, I'd use the crutches. And after 31 years of all of this experience, then I will use it forever. If you took it away from me, I'd use my thumb and index finger, but I praise God for the fact that I've got it today. And I do make them. I make them out of ABS plastic and I make them out of here's one that's in the process, made out of wood. And they're sort of more of an here's one that's done. It's Bobinga, I think. They're beautiful in my opinion. They work great and they'll last
That's
forever.
awesome. So we can find that at lightforcemethods.com,
That's
correct?
perfect. Yep. Yep, that's exactly it.
And that's light as in Light.
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure so all my viewers know out there, you wanna go to lightforce.com. You
It's lightforcemethods.com,
okay,
and I'm readily findable on Facebook and
awesome. We'll have that right here down below. We'll have your phone number, and we can also find you at drscottlittle.com.
yeah, that's a crappy website that's so antiquated that it
I
was
love it. You're okay.
built on a DOS system, I think, but yeah,
A DOS. I love it, though.
it's awful, but yeah, find me on Facebook or that Light Force Methods, but more than anything, just call me. I'd be honored to talk to you.
You are amazing mind. I love the method. I'm gonna actually be doing a lot more, in-depth study on that because 'cause I'm intrigued, and it's very interesting how stuff that works, people wanna shut down. I like to leave that with the
That's
viewers.
a rabbit hole.
That's a whole nother episode, but I just wanna say thank you so much for being here. Amazing. Love the sweater, by the way, again.
Thanks.
And no pun intended. But thank you so much for being here. And all my AI Edge listeners out there, I just want to let you guys know that one video can change one person's life. Send the video out to friends, chiropractors, doctors, because you know what? In this life, it's about looking beyond the box and not just staying in a box. And I love what Dr. Little said. He said the app's inside you. It's right there. I love it. And again, I want to say thank you so much for being here on the show, and I love what you do.
Thank you so much. My pleasure and honor.